Good morning, and welcome to Channing Memorial Church's Sunday service for January 17. This is our Sunday that we annually honor, remember Dr. Martin Luther King. It's our King Sunday. And today we're going to be honoring him and his legacy and the message that was sort of underlying all of the work that he did. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, I'm Bill Zelazny. I am the minister here at Channing Memorial Church, and today I'm the worship leader. We are very fortunate today to have a guest speaker for the sermon portion of the service. Mrs. Victoria Johnson is our guest speaker today. And Victoria is probably one of those people who you can truly say, like, needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. She is she's a lifelong resident of Newport. She was the first female Black principal in the state of Rhode Island when she became the principal of Rogers High School. She is probably best known today for her work on the Newport Middle Passage project, which we'll be hearing about in a few minutes during her talk. She's also a member of Community Baptist Church, a member of the NAACP, and a whole host of other activities in the community. And I am thrilled, really thrilled to have Mrs. Johnson with us today. So helping with the service, actually I'm going to say putting the service on, is our tech team. We have Candy Martin over here on the computers and the switching. Joanne Rosemont is on cameras, and off-site is Susan Koronsky handling the Zoom. As we do every Sunday, we will be having a fellowship time after the service. So just stay on the Zoom, if you're on Zoom, and you will go into the fellowship room. Susan will greet you there, and you can have a conversation about the service or just a conversation with each other about whatever you wish to talk about. So again, we are so happy that you are joining us today here on Zoom and on YouTube. If you like the service, if you like what we're doing here at Channing Church, let your friends know about it and invite them to join us also on Sunday morning. So we'll begin our service now with the prelude played by Janet Grant, our music director. Our prelude this morning was titled "Follow the Drinking Gourd." It's a song that is reported to have been one of the songs that the slaves used in escaping the South on the Underground Railroad. And the drinking gourd is thought to have meant the Big Dipper. Follow that north and you will get out of slavery in the South. Our opening words today are by Christian Schmidt. Let us wake up, not just from Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy moments in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, and also its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality that not all in our world have what we do, however much or little it may be. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to in the great web of mutuality of which we are part. We must stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues involved in the Black Lives Matter movement, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up. Let us stay awake. Let us stay woke. The chalice lighting words for today are based on writings of Reverend Scott Taylor. We light this chalice in honor of all that leads us forward, all that helps us move on after we fall, all that reminds us why we started, all that tells us there is still hope. May this time together help us remember that we have been called to make this world a better place for all. May this time together reignite our trust that though our path ahead may have challenges, they are important to face and overcome. May this time together leave us with a call to respond to the lure of the emerging light. I have two readings for us this morning to set the stage for the talk that Mrs. Johnson is going to be giving in a few moments. The first reading is by Dr. Stephen Garber, and it's called Disposition to Dualism. On Thursday morning, this idea of dualism jumped into my face, standing in a large circle of folk in Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church at a prayer breakfast. They drew together Black and white people from the community for the sake of the city. Hand in hand, we sang Amazing Grace. I once was blind and now I see. We honestly sang lustily from our hearts. But from the beginning to the end, I was struck by the irony of history too. The ironies that Providence had written into the very song being sung in this place by these people. In the room we were meeting was a glass case with a model of a slave ship, asking us to remember what once was, and the reality that every Black person there was a descendant of someone who had been stolen away from an African home, chained to hundreds of others in the hold of the ship that made its way across the Middle Passage, as the trip was called from Africa to America. And as most everyone knows, John Newton, the composer of Amazing Grace, was a slave ship captain. In our fantasies, we imagine that after he came to faith, he understood the wrong written into his work. But what we know from history, he kept at his slave trading for years, continuing to captain ships full of slaves, while on the top deck, leading the officers in the study of Scripture, seemingly unable to connect his worship and his work, his beliefs with his behavior. For 1,000 complex reasons of the heart, we are disposed to dualism. We chose incoherence rather than coherence, a fragmented worldview over a seamless way of life. What particularly struck me about the irony of singing Newton's song while in a room with a slave ship was that it is a sober reminder that the work of thinking Christianly is hard work. We do not come to it naturally. Again, we are disposed to dualism, carving up our conscience to allow us to believe one thing and behave as if another were equally true. But grace, always amazing, makes its way in and through us, giving us eyes to see what a good life is, one marked by holy coherence between what we believe and how we live, personally and publicly, in our worship as well as our work. Our second reading for today is a small excerpt from a very long address by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King at Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa in 1962. And I have not changed the words in it, so the phraseology in here and the words in here are from his time. God grant that people of goodwill will rise up with courage, take over leadership, and open channels of communication between races. For I am convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other. They don't communicate with each other because they are separated from each other. And God grant that something will happen to open channels of communication, that something will happen because men of goodwill will rise up to a level of leadership. God is not interested in merely the freedom of black men and brown men and any other men. God is interested in the freedom of the whole human race and the creation of society where all men will live together as brothers and where every man will be respected and have the dignity and worth of human personality. This is what we work for. This is the good society which we must seek in America. Our first hymn this morning is from the Great Hymn Book. It's Soon the Day Will Arrive, and it's sung as a song leader by Christine Stevenson.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering on that day. Thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share in the air together. Wait and see what a
Good morning. When Reverend Zalaski asked me to speak at this virtual service, I said yes, immediately. I'm honored immediately to be able to give honor to God, my family, and my community. And I thank you for having me. My talk will not be long, but I'm going to be talking about hope, love, and faith. We are honoring Dr. Martin Luther King, but first, let me give you a few verses from Philippians, which describe the hope we must have, the love and kindness we have, and to carry it on, that faith. Philippians 1 states, I am sure that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. That is our hope. Philippians 4 states, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let all men know your forbearance. Rejoice, have kindness, have love. And then Philippians 6 and 7, it says it all. No stress, no worry. Don't have anxiety about anything because you will have faith. I was born and raised in Newport, and I left in 74 and came back in 96, 97. But during the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, yes, segregation was part of our community. And as children in Sunday school, we were taught Philippians. Do good work. And when you do it, finish it. All my life, I believed in hope. And I'm presently involved in an organization labeled Newport Middle Passage Port Marker Project. And basically, this is how it started. In 2016, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I received a telephone call from a man named Peter Fay. Here I was in Arizona being asked by a strange white man whom I had never set eyes on, asking me if I would head a group of people in the city of Newport to bring recognition and honor to Africans and their descendants, African Americans. It was that day. For this project, I put more than my faith in God, and I began my hope, the building of a memorial for those Africans who crossed the Middle Passage, made a way for themselves and their descendants in the city of Newport 400 years ago. It was time. Each year since then have been monumental and plans have been completed. On January 3rd in 2017, Newport Middle Passage became a 501c3. And then the city of Newport in 2018 gave us one of the oldest plots of land in Newport where nothing had ever been built on. And then on July 19th, 2019, we were honored to receive the UNESCO Site of Memory associated with the slave trade. And last year, we chose an architect, Julian Bonder, who designed the slave memorial in Nantes, France. We worked hard, writing grants. We received support from the Bank Newport, Rhode Island Foundation, and we just recently received finances from Van Buren, all targeting our next steps in creating this memorial. Our name is slowly beginning to be known. Our annual fundraising letter has also enabled us to continue with our efforts in these plans. And I want to thank our donors at this time who willingly gave us support and finances to do what we need to do to build this memorial. We have lectures, videos, memberships, affiliations reaching all out to all organizations, reaching out to include all religions, all races, all sexes, all nationalities, anyone who will listen to us. And beginning this year, 2021, we have started what we call the Public Square Campaign, collaboration with other organizations in the city. But hope was the telephone call out of nowhere, asking to build this memorial where there was never anything that supported or honored African Americans. And we do have love in the form of kindness, continued support by our community, and with it, the ability to gather all people together, to include, and I'll repeat, because this is what's important about our city, include immigrants, Jews, Irish, Italians, Asians, Africans, Native Americans, Portuguese, everybody. That's our forbearance. Our forbearance is to rejoice. When we first started this committee, at the very first meeting, I specifically stood up and I said, you were asked to join this committee, but you do not have to stay with us. And if you can't do these two actions, then you need to get up and you need to leave our meeting now. And those two actions are, there will never be any guilt and will never be any shame. No guilt, no shame. And that's how this organization, Newport Middle Passage, has put away all the stress and the anxiety. We have faith to know it will happen. There was a possibility that this faithfulness would not have ever happened, but God had already sent us a man who would emulate. In 1929, God sent a baby born on January 15th. His parents named him Martin. We know him as Dr. Martin Luther King. He became a pastor, an activist, a prominent leader in the American Civil Rights Movement. As a young man, his hope was to build a better world for the United States of America. Dr. Martin Luther King began good work. I wonder how many times John Lewis learned these words from his mentor. Dr. King founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization which was devoted to racial integration and improved life for Black Americans. A man who indulged himself in civil rights and believed it could be done through nonviolence. He was a human rights icon, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and he was kind. He had love. When we read Philippians 4, it notates the following: rejoice, let all men know your forbearance. Dr. King exemplified the forbearance in the I Have a Dream speech. He declared that we should be able to work together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together. And tomorrow will be, for the NAACP in the city of Newport, their 36th celebration to honor Dr. King. I recently was listening to the media, and they were informing us what other national leaders were saying to their citizens. They were saying, look at the United States. Do you hear what is going on over there? And that is what they call democracy? And we should answer, yes, we have a democracy. We have fought for equality. And we are a democratic country. We have been in the past, even before the civil rights era. But Dr. King taught us how to do it peacefully, and we can do it again. Democracy is our way of life. Yes, we can overcome the fear to avoid the places or the situations that might cause panic or stress and apprehension of what is to come. It's occurring in the United States at this present time. But we're going to overcome this toxic environment that's trying to evade our country. We are going to have painful experiences. We are going to have inequities, hardships. But as a democracy, we will overcome. In 1964, with the civil rights legislation, many of us thought we were turning around the bend. And there were some turbulent days, but we came around that bend with Dr. Martin Luther King leading the crowd spiritually. Around the bend. If you have visited his monument in Washington, there is a stone wall that has a bend around it with many of his sayings from his lectures and his spiritual sermons. Dr. King led our crowd spiritually. He was accompanied by hope. Hope entered the picture. Hope walked by his side, and he had the forbearance with the love and the kindness. He made his requests to God by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. He continued this behavior and demonstrated his faith. It was time. His daughter Bernice had once said, and I'm quoting her, when my dad talked about community, he wanted everyone to bring their gifts, their talents, their cultural experiences. We live in a society where we may have differences, of course, but we learn to celebrate these differences, unquote. It is time that if we are to be judged, it should be by the content of our character. I am convinced that with the implementation of the Civil Rights Act here in Newport, Rhode Island, we never would have had all of the African Americans who became first in their race to take a prominent position in our city. A few years back, I did a PowerPoint on about 53 Black Americans in our city who took their place to help run our city of Newport. And I am also convinced that without the Civil Rights Act in the United States, Barack Obama would never have been our president. I attribute that to the Dr. Martin Luther King and his thoughts and his actions and his faith. Martin Luther King educated, he inspired, but at the same time, he informed. He declared that the nation could not return to business as usual. It was time then. He was assassinated in April 1968. And now, almost 53 years later, we still remember his character. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. We have had promises, We have made promises and we've had promises broken. His memorial stands on land called the Mountain of Hope. The inscription reads, "I was a drum major for peace and righteousness." He stands in between the Lincoln statue on one end and the Jefferson Memorial on the other. His arms across, and he's gazing directly in line towards the Jefferson Memorial. You must go there if you have not been there. You must go there to see his statue, to see him standing tall. You must go there to see the bend and the inscription of the wall so that you know immediately right away what I'm talking about when he says he walks with us. Middle Passage Committee has come this far by faith, by love, and by hope, the character of an icon. And we need the help of our community to spread this gospel, to keep it flowing in knowledge and in understanding. And we will complete the project to honor African Americans in the city of Newport. It's time. And I thank you, Channing. I thank you, Reverend Zaleski. I thank you for having us here. It is time.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Will you join me now in the spirit of prayer? Spirit of life, the mystery of ages. We have come together this Sunday in the spirit of the efforts of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose labors were a gift to this country. We know that we are called today not simply to remember Dr. King, but rather to continue to heed the call he made to us to work to bring the beloved community to fruition. Our work is not done. Though the specific tasks we face today are different in many ways from those of his time, the evils of fear, of bigotry, of ignorance, of hatred that give rise to the problems of his era are still with us today. We are called to remember truths that Dr. King spoke, that the hungry and poor are with us because of the inequities of the economy, that discrimination is with us because people are afraid of changing populations, that those in power will fight using almost any means to stay in power. And two, we are called today to remember that we are not to judge one another by the color of one's skin, but by the content of their character. We are called to work to banish the worry about violence and brutality that stalks people in our cities and countryside. We are called to know that racism still lurks like a viper and to see its image in the 21st century. And so we gather again to renew our promise to one another that we will be vigilant, that we will recognize that we are one people that need each other. In the spirit of remembrance, in the spirit of gratitude, in the spirit of hope, in the spirit of love, we set forth once again to make the world anew. Amen. There is always time of joys and sorrows, and we all have concerns in our lives about our family, about ourselves, about our community. And so as we do every Sunday, I'm going to light a candle of community, to take in all of our joys, all of our sorrows, all of our concerns, and all of our gratitudes. May we be a community of caring, of love, of support. Your financial gifts support this congregation now and set the foundation for what we will be able to do in the future. And it is with deep gratitude that we receive your contributions. They all help Channing Memorial Church meet its ongoing operation expenses. And so we ask that you please continue with your financial support through your pledge payments. And if you would also pretend that you are seeing this wood plate that we have used in this church for years pass in front of you for the offertory time, and take a moment to write a check, another little contribution, as if you had put it into the plate, and send it to the church. Your contributions will so greatly help us. And again, thank you for your contributions, your financial contributions, and for your service to Channing Church. Our closing hymn for today is Building a New Way.
free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free.
I want to thank Mrs. Johnson for her talk with us today. Very inspiring. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And just to let you know, our postlude today is entitled, I Wish I Knew How to Live with Freedom. It was a song that was very, very, very popular a number of decades ago. In closing, I ask us as we end our service today to remember that we are the people that are charged to live out the call of Reverend King, to live out the call to make the world a better place, to live out the call to make the world the beloved community. May we do that every day of our life. So be it. Amen.